The presidential race, of course, in full swing. Lots of people have questions of all the candidates, including a serious challenge being led by Ohio Senate President Keith Faber, who is representing many lawmakers around the entire country, wanting to get them to answer a few very direct questions about exactly where the country stands. And it all really comes back, first and foremost, to giving the balance of power back to the states.
Look, the founders of our Constitution knew and expected the states to be the laboratories of democracy. And what's happened is the federal government has started to become all-consuming and expects the states to be the junior partners. It's time to reset that balance. We're asking our presidential candidates to commit to 5 simple principles of states' rights. And they're things that are simple, like 1, block granting things that the states should be doing and will do better, like Medicaid and transportation and education, back to the states. Let's make this simple. The federal government provides roughly 4% of the K-12 education funding money, but yet for that 4%, they want almost total control on how we educate kids.
The second of the 5 areas deals with something Ohio already does constitutionally, and that is balance the budget. And your question is from not only the Republican candidates, but to the Democratic candidates about balancing the federal budget.
Look, we think it's important that we have a federal balanced budget amendment. When times get tough, it's always easier to kick the can down the road and spend money you don't have than to live within your means, tighten your belt. We think a $19 trillion debt is not just wrong, it's immoral for our kids and grandkids.
And that also deals with federal tax reform, one of the third challenges.
Yeah, look, the federal tax code is really hurting the state's ability to grow and prosper because it's impinging upon economic growth and jobs. That's the most important thing we do in government, is to create an environment for the private sector to create jobs. And so we want the federal government, particularly the Congress, to do meaningful tax reform. Now, we're not specifying what that is. Some people like a flat tax. Some people just want to lower the rates. Some people want to go to a value added. I tend to favor consumption taxes over income taxes. But we need reform because the current 80,000-page IRS code is ridiculous.
A lot of people would also like to see some regulatory reform, whether it's environmental regulations or whatever it might be. They feel like it's far too skewed to the federal government.
Well, this is another area where the federal government expects us to be junior partners, not equal partners. Ultimately, it should be about compliance, not gotcha, not overcorrecting. You're killing jobs, you're hurting our economy. And look, I don't know why Congress isn't voting on some of these regulations, particularly the ones that have very large economic impact. It's both a dereliction of their duty and it's an overreach of the administration.
That also limits the growth of government when you do that. And finally, everybody, at least on Capitol Hill, is talking about the U.S. Supreme Court vacancy and judicial reform, and there's a lot that goes into this whole topic as well. And you hear often about we don't want somebody who legislates from the bench. I guess, what is the challenge along the judiciary?
Well, look, we started this effort well before Justice Scalia's untimely demise. This was an effort that was started by state legislative leaders over the last year, and we've been talking about how we can communicate this the best. And so that's why we issued the challenge letter. And certainly one of the things we're asking for them to do is to appoint constitutionally conservative judges. Look, the federal judiciary arguably will be the longest lasting legacy of any president. And so we want to make sure that they're appointing people that understand the distinction between states' rights and federal rights. Certainly at the Supreme Court level, whoever the next president appoints is going to have a long lasting impact. It's things like the Second Amendment, it's things like life, it's things like whether it's a tax for Obamacare. All of those are things that are literally determined by the courts. And so we need judges who are going to respect the roles of the states under our federal system.
And to learn more about this 5-part challenge being led by Ohio Senate President Keith Faber, make sure you tune into our social media channels. That's at Ohio Senate GOP. I'm John Fortney from the Ohio Senate.